Hey friends, it's Angie with Refined Crafts, and I thought I would record this video today and show you the unboxing of this set of markers that I got at 5 and Below. I'm going to try to do this in some video takes that I'll stitch together, but I may end up having to add some photos and voiceovers. It really depends. There's an air compressor in the area where my craft space is set up, and sometimes it will come on and cut out anything that I'm trying to say. So for those of you that may not have a 5 and Below near you, 5 and Below is a discount kind of store that sells all kinds of stuff, and everything is $5 or less. And just like Dollar Tree, they've recently switched to $5.25 for a lot of their things. But they will have things for a while and then they may not have them anymore, so it's kind of a get it while you can get it situation. I found these markers the last time I was there, and I haven't tried them before. I have tried some other markers and art supplies that 5 and Below sells, and most of the time they're decent and they're a good price point if you're doing art projects with your kids. But sometimes they're great for higher end stuff too. So today I just wanted to unbox this set and try it out on some different papers and try it out with some different reactions to see if it reacts with water or alcohol, because the packaging doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't tell you if they're water-based. It doesn't tell you if they blend. It doesn't tell you anything except that they are soft brush tip and fine point tip markers, and there's 28 of them. So you can see here they have fine tip, they have brush tip, and we're just going to try them out. So I started out by punching out some tags, and I will link photos of all the supplies that I used. I don't have links. This is my punch. It's from Fiskars. I bought this years ago. It's not really sharp anymore. It did okay on some of the papers and not so well on others. I'm using different papers from my stash, and you'll see in the photos that I like to get supplies at Goodwill when I can find them. It's part of that reuse philosophy. So here's some satin photo paper, some glossy photo paper, and other than that I've just got my standard white cardstock, some printer paper, and some watercolor paper. And I have punched tag shapes out of each of those samples, and we're going to try coloring with the markers on each of those different types of paper. Here's the box of markers. I took the sticker off earlier just so I could be sure I'd be able to open it on camera, but you can see they're a little triangle shape. It looks like there are a few different colors in the same color ranges. So here's greens and another green and maybe some pinks and purples we can try, and some blues. And those are the color ranges I think I'll try today. Now you can see I've gathered up all of the colors that I'm going to use for today's testing, and I have a selection of pinks and purples, some greens, and some blues. And the first thing I notice about these markers is they don't give you any sort of indication of the color. There's no number, there's no color name, and we don't know yet if the caps match the colors that the markers will draw. So we'll find that out in our test. I'm going to start out here with this blue range, and this is plain copy paper, just inexpensive, what you would run through your printer. So this is a light lavender done with the brush tip. I'm going to do 2 sets of each color on each tag, and I will show you why that is later on when we get to it. So that cap didn't want to come off. Here's the fine line. And while I've got this one open, I'll go ahead and do this color range on all of the tags off camera, and then I'll come back. I actually changed my mind. I'm going to go ahead and record all of this, because this first sample, this is one of the photo papers. This is the satin photo paper. The pen doesn't want to write on it. It feels really sticky, like it's pulling. And again, that cap is really stiff. Here's the brush tip with the lavender. That's the satin. Here's the glossy. Now that actually colors really nicely, but we'll see after it dries if it wants to rub off, because I don't know if these are in any way permanent or how they're going to behave. This is the watercolor paper, and that color is pretty nice. It has a nice feel to it. And finally, here is my 110-pound white cardstock. And this is Neenah cardstock, but it is not the solar white. This is Neenah Exact Index, which I think is more often used in office settings. I buy it at Sam's Club. It's what is in my price point and what I can get a hold of. So now I'm just going to go through and do a fine line underneath each of these so that we can complete the sample set. This one, the satin cardstock and the gloss, or the photo paper, I mean, the satin photo paper and the gloss photo paper, those want to stick with this fine point pen. Alright, and now that I have completed one set on all the tags and you know what I'm going to do, now I'll go off camera and I'll finish out the blue. Now I've finished going through all the blue colors, and I forgot at first that I was planning to do it twice on each tag. I will go through and do some of the green colors now. And one thing I noticed with the blue ones, I love how the brush tip feels on the photo paper. So it flows so smoothly on the photo paper, but I hate how the line tip feels on the photo paper because it just feels like it wants to stick. So we'll just go through these green colors and do the same sort of thing. Checking each one. I'm making 2 tags because I'm planning to test each tag once with water and once with alcohol to see if either of those react. Because different techniques, you may want to have a reaction with water or with alcohol, and you need to know which one works. Or if you want to clean up, you need to know which one works. And I obviously didn't leave room at the bottom for my third color on some of these tags. That's okay, we'll squeeze it in somewhere. So far they all seem to work. None of them are dry, so that's good. The small end, the caps are really hard to take on and off. And some of the colors look pretty similar to each other in their caps. Like those, they look very similar. And I don't know that the color that the marker draws matches the cap very well, especially on this one. It doesn't seem the same as that cap. So if you get these and you're particular about your colors, you may want to go and do a swatch and then number your markers somehow so that you know which ones will color, or just test them before you use each one. Yeah, I love how this one feels on this glossy photo paper. So we'll see how it dries back too, as far as leaving lines and blending marks. We'll try some blending with these too and see if the colors will blend into each other. Yeah, the one that I love on the brush, I hate on the fine tip. It feels so sticky and it just makes the pen drag. And now we've got a couple of light green colors. Oh, I forgot the second dark green on that one. That's okay. And then the last of the light greens. And that one the color matches the cap a little better. But that is the trouble that I find with most of these inexpensive markers, and especially if they don't have numbers, you can't always go back to the same color each time. You may not know exactly what color you're going to get until you draw with it. And even between these different papers, you know, you can get a different effect, whether you're using copy paper to watercolor paper, photo paper. I have found it's a good idea before I start a project to go either on the edge of my paper or on a different piece and swatch out the colors I plan to use. Make sure that they are the colors I want. And now I'm just starting the pink. If I didn't leave enough room down below, I'll just do 2 rows in the middle. It's not critical to have 2 of each one on each tag. I just want to be able to test the different colors and the different processes and see if they act the same. And I might not do fine lines with the pinks, just to get through the test. So here's a darker. On the paper it looks a little more purple, on the cap it looks more pink. So again, swatch your colors when you are getting ready to draw something if the exact color match is important to you. And again, with this brush tip, this photo paper, it feels nice under the brush. The satin feels good too, but the glossy photo paper feels really good under that brush. And the others, I'm not sure if you can hear it on the video, but you can hear the tooth of the paper. And how the brush rubs over it. On the photo paper, there's no drag at all. It just glides. And here's our last color in this range. And that, it's funny, it doesn't match the tip of the marker, but it matches the cap. And it looks different on the different papers. It looks much more pink on the watercolor paper, where it looked purple here on the Neenah cardstock. Alright, so what we have here is a collection of tags now that all have different color swatches from our markers, different collections of things, and I just want to see how these markers act. So this is our plain copy paper, and I'm going to leave this portion alone, and this portion down here I'm going to spray with water. And the same with all of these. I'm going to take one tag and set it aside, and the other side I'm going to spray with water, and we will see how it does. So we have plain copy paper, we have a satin finish photo paper, and when I rub it, it doesn't rub off right now when it's dry. We've got a glossy finish photo paper, and again, when I rub that, it doesn't come off. It's not smearing. This is the Neenah Exact Index white cardstock, 110 pound. And this is a watercolor paper. And on all of these, if I rub the marker, it's not smearing, so it dries pretty well. And now I'm going to take this little piece of plastic as a mask so I can keep the top dry. I want to keep part of it unaffected by any test. I have some water. This is just filtered water from my water cooler, and I'm going to spray the bottom, and we'll see if the ink wants to smear or react in any way. Now the paper, this is copy paper and it's thin, so you can see it's wet, but it doesn't look like the ink is smearing. This is the glossy photo paper. And again, it's not reacting with the water. This one is the satin photo paper. And I get no reaction, no movement. It's wet, but there's no reaction to the water. Here's some watercolor paper. And this one, oh, look at that. So on the watercolor paper, I got some spatters and I get some blending. So, wow, that's really unexpected based on what we saw on the others, but that's kind of cool. And then here is the white cardstock. And I'll spray that and we'll see. So on the white cardstock, actually I don't know if that came from my finger because of the watercolor, so let's try again. Alright, yes, on the white cardstock I see some lifting of the color and some movement and some blending. Not as much as on the watercolor paper. So, and now look, going back to the plain copy paper, it had some time to soak in and it looks like it started to move and blend a little bit as well. But on the photo papers, there was no movement, no reaction. It looks pretty stable. Even going back a few minutes later, that ink is not moving on the photo paper. Alright, so that's kind of a cool result. Now I'm going to go in with my towel and just dry off my space. And I want to do a similar test with this tag with alcohol. So again, I've got let me dry this off so that it doesn't have water on it. So here's my little plastic mask. I have a similar spray bottle. I just get these at the Dollar Tree. This one's filled with 91% rubbing alcohol from Sam's Club. I have the cap. I colored it with red permanent marker so that I would know this was my alcohol bottle. So here we are this is the Neenah cardstock. Again, it's the Exact Index cardstock used for office work, not the solar white. I've never found that anywhere, and I can find this easily at Sam's Club. So now we're spraying with alcohol. So I don't see any immediate movement. And when I rub my finger on it, I don't get any blending with the alcohol. This is one of the photo papers. This is the glossy photo paper. So we'll spray it with alcohol. And again, we have no lifting, no blending, no reaction with the marker, but it looks like the paper is reacting. So with the glossy photo paper, the alcohol is seeping in underneath the edge, and it didn't do that here with the water. So I don't see any techniques to use water or alcohol with these markers on photo paper. So next we have, let's see, the satin photo paper and alcohol. And again, I don't see any lifting or any blending of the ink, but I do see a reaction with the edge of the paper where the alcohol seems to be soaking into the edge. Now we've got our plain copy paper with alcohol, and that instantly soaked into the paper. I don't see any movement or blending with the ink. And then the last one is our watercolor paper with alcohol. And I don't see any movement or any blending with alcohol with those markers. So my conclusion with these markers is that they are water-based. They are not alcohol-based, so alcohol will not allow them to blend. But water on watercolor paper will allow them to blend to a point. Also on cardstock, but not as much as you get with the watercolor paper. As far as blending goes, let me rearrange my space and I'll set up to test for that. Okay, so I just recorded a whole segment after taking a picture instead of starting a video, so I will just explain what I did here. I set up some new tags and I have pulled out some colors to test blending. And one of the things that's going to be frustrating using these markers is the caps don't match the color really at all. So I just swatched these out and you can see the colors. The pink is kind of close in the middle, but this top one, the cap looks much more lavender and the color looks pink to me. And this one, the cap looks almost a plum color and the ink looks a very deep purple. This is on satin photo paper. This is on glossy photo paper. This is on white cardstock, and on white cardstock I'd say this purple matches a little bit more, but the pink doesn't match now. So these are going to look different on whatever medium you color them on, and it's probably a good idea to swatch them out before you start each one. But now I'm just going to test and see if these will blend, if we color next to each other, if they will have any blending effect on any of these types of paper. So, just like I would do with alcohol markers, I'm going to color my lightest color all the way across. And then I'll color my darker color at the end. And we'll see what it does. This is on satin photo paper. Here's my medium color. And I don't see any blending going on. I can see all of my brush marks. I don't see any transition between the colors. Go over it with the light again. Yeah, it's not really a smooth blend between these colors. So they don't behave like alcohol markers would, as far as that nice smooth blending that you can achieve. And we'll try it again on the glossy paper. It also looks like my light color now has picked up some of the dark color because of going over it. And the medium, it might be blending a little better on the glossy, it's hard to tell. Here's the dark. Actually, that one does. On the glossy photo paper, it looks like it's blending a little bit better. There's a little bit of a transition, but it's still very visible. The brush marks are very visible, and it doesn't really look like the colors mix. We'll try on the Neenah white cardstock and the watercolor paper. The Neenah cardstock is wanting to pill up underneath the brush mark once it's getting wet from the ink. And the watercolor, I do see a blend happening here, but it's also wanting to pill up a little bit, so you can see some of the paper is rubbing off as you go. The watercolor does blend between the colors, and oh, it wasn't even in frame, I'm sorry. Let me do that one again. So here's the watercolor. If we put our light color down, and then we'll put our dark at one end, and our medium in the middle. And I do see some blending between those, especially as you go over them. They'll blend on watercolor paper, but it pills up. If I can focus here, I don't think it'll focus on my pen, but the paper is coming apart and leaving little, yeah, and it will even blend with my finger, and I'm sure if we spray it with some water, it will also blend with that. So you can get a blending effect, but you'll have to let it dry and then take all your little paper crumbs off of your project. And on this cardstock too, I'm guessing the same thing. So yeah, it will blend, but it's kind of messy. It pulls your paper apart. So they blend a little bit on watercolor paper if you just color over them. I don't know what I was expecting really, but this is what we got. And I'll try again with the green range, and we'll see if we get any blending here. So we'll start out again swatching it out because we don't know what these colors look like. And then this paper is already wet, so it might behave a little differently. So we do have 3 distinct shades of green. The 2 lighter shades don't match their caps. Well, the lightest one does, but the middle one doesn't really match the cap. It doesn't show as much of a distinction as there is in the ink. And that's our 3rd color. And I'm going to try something a little different this time. So this paper was already wet, but I'm going to actually spray it and see what that does. So can we color on wet paper? And no, it doesn't color on wet at all. And look, it's actually taking the color away from the nib on my marker. That's strange. I might have just ruined my marker for a while. It'll have to come back out. Yep. So yeah, these don't like coloring on wet paper. So I'll come over to the drier top side of this and put down some of this light green. It is pulling up the paper again. Here on the satin finish photo paper, we'll put down some light green. And here on this cardstock, and here you can see on the Neenah cardstock, it does bleed through when you color or when you get it wet. They do bleed through some. And then here's the glossy. It squeaks on the glossy. That's kind of funny. Next, actually I'll do dark green next. So dark green over here on the right side on each of these. And then the medium green in the middle. And it squeaks. So again, I don't see much blending happening on the glossy cardstock or on the satin cardstock. These act pretty much like permanent markers on glossy and satin cardstock. They didn't react with water, they didn't react with alcohol, they don't smudge. So if you need to color on glossy or satin cardstock, they work pretty well. Here on the Neenah white, or the Neenah Exact Index white cardstock, they get a little bit of a blend, but they also pill the paper quite a bit. And let me see if I can zoom in on that. Yeah, so you see how the paper is just pilling away as you color on this? That you can deal with that. Once your project is dry, you can brush those pills off, but it's kind of annoying. And it's not a great blend. And then here's the watercolor cardstock. And this one blends better. You can wipe out the line so you don't have a firm line between the medium and the dark. It still pills the paper a little bit, so I've got little bits of paper coming off, and then here I bet we can wipe out this transition and get a smooth transition here. So yeah, but again, it does pill the paper a little bit. You'd have to wait for that to dry or deal with it. So these seem okay. They're okay markers. For the price point, they're excellent. It looks like they have a lot of good colors. They work. None of them were dried up. They work great on glossy photo paper. I really like that they don't smear on this, and for the brush side anyway, they feel really good to color on glossy photo paper. So if that's your medium, these might work out great for you. And again, for $5, I think they're all right. I'll keep them in my stash. I'll use them. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Let me know what other kinds of things you would like to see tested. I am fine getting myself inky and making a bunch of test pieces for you, so you don't have to. Talk to you next time. Bye.